followed by Carrie Brown.
I want to thank the board for bringing this up again. I think it's a measure of your commitment to democracy and to citizen activism and to being willing to have a discussion with the community that this is before us again. And of course, I would urge you all to pass this and rejoice, because this means that we as a community are doing what's right, what's going to help our democracy, what's going to help keep this board on a reasonable scale so that we don't have people coming in from out of the county just to try to run and contribute illegal amounts of money and run the county from afar. So please go ahead and enact this. We aren't doing this we don't have total discretion on what we can do. We have a Supreme Court that's interpreted the Constitution to impose all kinds of restraints in the name of free speech, which I find really odd. Usually money is the problem, not the solution. But that's our Supreme Court, and we all have to live with it. I think what Supervisor Colfax said is especially apropos, because nobody likes to have to spend their time raising money. It's not fun. You have to beg, grovel, maybe get down in the gravel, David, I don't know, but it's just not fun. Vote buying is a hideous thing. I just once again would like to thank you for bringing this up again, and I think by passing this ordinance you will be encouraging good people to run for office. And as Scott Craddy noted, Ukiah passed a campaign finance reform ordinance, and as the candidates who supported it all won. All of them won. The candidates who didn't support it all lost. And I think that's a very hopeful sign in an otherwise kind of discouraging world, and I would encourage you to follow suit. Thank you very much.
Your name for the record, please.
Jamie Shepard.
Thank you. Last speaker, Carrie Brown.
Carrie Brown speaking as a citizen from Potter Valley. I think it's a good move. I'm glad it's come up again. I think it is a reasonable approach. There is a 6 months yearly review process that the board can go back and revisit. I also agreed with the maximum of 1,000, and it was raised from the 500 from the previous document or draft ordinance that was before you. But I'd like to add my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Any other members of the public wishing to speak to this item? Okay, I'll close public comment then and bring it back to the board. I believe there is a motion before us. It's been seconded. Supervisor Smith, I'm sorry I didn't see your pen.
That's okay. I just put it back up. To Supervisor Pinch's comment, he made a comment, and maybe council could address it in terms of the free speech issue. And I recall from our committee discussions, of which there were numerous ones, and they were quite lengthy, that the limitations from the Supreme Court, that it's allowable to have contribution limitations, but it is not allowable to limit one's own individual contributions. But you must declare them. So you can use whatever you want of your own individual money as long as you declare it.
That's correct. And also the expenditure provision, that's something that we had to keep as a voluntary provision as well, right, based on the current law.
Good. That helps clarify. Thank you.
To tag on to that, to council, so section 8.100.040 says section A, elections of a candidate, and it says candidate is restricted to not exceed $1,000.
You can't do that.
Is that a typo, or halfway down that paragraph, any person, organization, candidate, or committee, any contribution in support of or in opposition to a candidate, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
The United States Supreme Court clearly rejected that.
So that would counter what you just said about. Excuse me, 8.100.040, Section A, titled Elections of a Candidate. Halfway down, third line, middle of the page, it states candidate may not exceed.
The Supreme Court clearly rejected that.
That's a different, it means something else here. Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
that has the same effect on out of county contributions too. If you were say you were a person that didn't reside in Mendocino County, but you had land holdings or interest in Mendocino County, what you're saying is you're limiting that person's ability to affect the politics, say in Mendocino County. The Supreme Court clearly rejected that. It's not allowable as an infringement on your freedom of speech rights.
Okay. Any further discussion from the board? I want to make some comments. In the several years that have followed the initial vote on this, which I must state on the agenda summary page, the last line under the summary, the board took no action to introduce. I need to state that is incorrect. We did take a vote. The vote was 3-2 to deny introduction of the ordinance at that time. So that is a correction. And I guess the reason it took so long through committee was I had a great number of problems with this, and some were met, some continue to be a problem of mine, and in the 2 years or so since this was initially discussed, I come back to those original concerns, and a whole list of concerns. I don't think I need to go into those. I've already stated them many, many times. But one of the biggest concerns I have is interjecting this in the middle of an election with probably the most amount of candidates we've ever had in district-wide elections, 3 different elections. And I think that's unfair to interject this at that time. It does carry over into the runoff elections for the fall. I think this would be much more appropriate if it was to be taken up in an open discussion in the interim period between elections and not interjecting itself in the middle. One of the biggest concerns I have is the section that Supervisor Pinch has brought forward. The purpose of this